Hi folks, and welcome back to the third fly in the buzzer series. What you see in the vise is a Pseudo Diawl Bach, and with this fly we're going to be moving much further up in the water column. So without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise then is a Hanak H260 barbless hook. This one's at size 8, it's on a heavy wire and it's finished in black nickel. Now the size 8 does fit in the competition gauge for those that are interested. The thread that I'm going to be using today is from Simplify. It's a classic wax thread at 6/0. As you can see, it's a red thread. Now I'm going to get a little bit of wax onto my thread and then I'm going to catch in just behind the eye, and then I can bring my thread up. Don't be worrying about touching turns. We're going to be covering the body up quite well. And I'm going to bring it up to approximately where a barb would be on a barbed hook. Then I'm going to bring my thread back to the thorax area, come in with my snips and remove my waste. Now what I've got for the tailing of this is I'm using this dyed black grizzle cape. I already have a feather that I've been working away with here, and I want to take about a dozen fibres from the stem. Then I can bring them all together, and what I want to do is get about the length of the body, and then I can bring that in, trap it in, try and keep your fibres on top of the shank, just pull them back slightly, and then I can come in and remove my excess at the front. So far so good. Now for the rib of this particular fly, we're going to use some pseudo hackle. Now I did tie a fly for Facebook a few weeks back, and people seem to like it, so I thought I'd use this as an example. So what we're talking about in this series of videos is flies that imitate buzzers, and obviously buzzers start their life at the very bottom of the lake bed, and they slowly work their way up through the water columns. Now a Diawl Bach is quite a light fly, even though I'm tying it on this heavy hook, and it will sit quite high in the water column, especially if you utilise the washing line to fish it. So I've got some of this pseudo hackle, and I want to take off approximately 2 inches of that. As you can see, it comes in two sides, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this with one side slightly longer than the other. So I'm just doing this probably out of focus off camera, and what I'll end up with is I've got my spare piece here which I'll save for another fly, and I've got my other piece where you can see there's not much fibre coming off all the way to the top, which is quite long. Now people they use pseudo hackle alone to tie the body of Diawl Bachs. I like to utilise a bit of old school peacock herring, so I'm going to use the pseudo as a rib, if you like, and this fly should fish quite high in the water column. So now for the body, I'm using some Trout Line Select peacock herring, and as you can see it's quite thick and bushy, and I want it to be like that for this particular pattern. So the weak point on herring is always near the tip, so what I'm going to do is just pinch away the very uppermost tip section of the herring. Then I can catch that in and secure it to the shank of the hook. I'm going to bring my thread all the way to the front, get a few extra turns in there, and then I can grab the herring with my hand and start to bring it around. Using the rotary function of the vise, try not to catch the point of the hook like I just did. It can ruin your day. Herring's very weak, and if you don't take care, it'll just snap away and you'll be left having to take your thread back and start again. So that's nice and bushy, just how I wanted it. And as I come up towards the eye of the hook, I'm going to pause there, swap hands, and just make sure I've caught in that herl. Get a couple of turns in, a few turns over the back, and then I can just remove my excess. Now, the next part then, with my tapered pseudo hackle, I'm going to, and I'm just going to mess about with this because I want it to flow backwards from the fly, and sometimes it just doesn't want to play the game like now. So I'm going to try going the other way. There we go, that's got it. And I'm going to create my pseudo hackle rib, and this will stand out and mix in with the herl, giving it a very nice effect on the fly. Now, on the original one I tied for Facebook, it had a black head, and several of the people that looked at the fly said, oh, it would be really nice with a red head. So hence I've brought in Simplified's classic waxed thread. There we go. I'll just remove the little bit of pseudo there, sweep everything back, make sure the tail's sitting right. Next thing I want to do is tie in my throat hackle. So I'm going to return to my grizzle cape, and again I'm going to take off probably about a dozen fibres, bring them all together in my fingers. I'm going to invert my vise for this part, just damp down the fibres and bring it in. I don't want it to go past the body. Then I can just get a few turns to hold that into place, and then, excuse my fingers, I'm going to come in with my snips and remove any excess. I can bring that back to the right way up, and the next thing of course is the jungle cock eyes. Now I'm using some quite small feathers. As you can see, the bottom of the cape's been pillaged. There isn't much good left, but I'm going to tie in the ones that I've picked. So they're quite small eyes, and what I want to do is just get them. I'll do your side first. I've left enough of a handle to grab that in. Now my finger's in the way, but what I've done is that I've slightly had the feather on top of the fly shank, so when I bring the thread round, it slowly turns it to your side. Just make sure that's sitting how I want it, and then with the other side I can come in and do likewise. Again, please excuse my fingers. You do need to hold it into place. Now, with the two ends, there's a couple of things you can do. You can separate them out like I'm doing here, and tie over the top of them. Or you can simply come in with your scissors and trim them away, but I always find that this is a much more secure way of doing it. So now I've got that in, I can come in with my fingers, just ease out them stems. Excuse my fingers. Like so. So let's have a look at your side. That's looking pretty good. I've still got a little bit of mess there, which I want to get rid of. And then I can simply come with my whip finish tool, like so. Now, as for finishing it, it's up to yourself. You can use varnish, super glue, or even resin. I often use resin, but on this occasion I can't find my resin, so I'm going to use some super glue. Does the same job, it just secures the head. And if you want to be pedantic about it, you can always come back later when you've found your resin and finish the fly. But this will more than suffice for fishing purposes. And I would fish this primarily, if I was fishing it straight through, I'd be looking for a nice gentle ripple, so I've got the time to let it slowly sink through the water column, and it'll work a treat for you. I knew a lad in the army that once called these buzzers. It was quite confusing when you were on the water. When you asked what he was fishing, he would say he was fishing his buzzers, but what he meant was he was fishing his Diawl Bachs, which fish completely different from the ones we've done in the previous week. Thanks for watching, and next week we'll see the last of the buzzer series, and what we're going to be doing is looking at a fly that will fish really high in the water column. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.